Hi guys, my name is Hannah. Welcome to my channel. I make videos about being in our 20s and figuring out how to live a life of value and meaning and purpose in an ever-changing, complicated world. Today's video, I'm going to take a walk down my street and we're going to talk about SIBO and my digestive health. SIBO stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, and it's a gut problem that I have been dealing with, diagnosed since March of 2020, but probably I've been dealing with the symptoms of it for a long time. I don't know how long I've had it. So I'm gonna go down on this journey. You guys have asked me some questions. I have them here. I'm gonna answer them for you. And this is gonna help open up and start a discussion about digestive health and our bodies, and how our bodies are also really connected to the earth, and how what's going on the earth is probably also reflecting in our bodies right now. That's my own 2 cents on the matter. So I am on the road. There might be people walking by, cars going by, and birds chirping, wind blowing, but hopefully you can hear me, and hopefully this is as interesting to you as it has been for me to experience life in this body. So the first question is, when did I first started noticing that I had digestive issues? I first noticed that I was having digestive issues in middle school. In about 6th, 7th grade, I was eating a lot of bread, a lot of sugar. I would have a sandwich for lunch, and then after school, we would go to this deli and I would get a bagel with cream cheese or a candy bar, like a Snickers bar or something. And I would eat that on the bus going home. And when I got home, I would be exhausted and cranky, and I had no energy, and I wouldn't have the mental focus to do my homework. I also was in a lot of pain in my stomach almost all the time. I knew something wasn't right in about middle school. So I went and I did my first intolerance testing, where they basically like put this like metal reader on my fingers with different ointments on it, and it told me that I was intolerant to gluten, dairy, sugar, which is the usual, and I had a couple other smaller intolerances. But basically what intolerances are is it's how your body is going to react, how inflamed your body's gonna get when you put those things into your body. So I completely cut out gluten, wheat, and I didn't eat that for very strictly for a year. After about a year, it was really hard to be like, no, I won't ever have pizza or pasta again. I definitely felt like I was missing out on what other people could enjoy. So I would start incorporating that into my diet slowly, a little bit here and there. And what I noticed is if I ate a little bit, I would be fine, but if I ate too much, then I would start to have a reaction. And a reaction would basically be bloating, discomfort in my stomach, trouble getting stuff out on the other end. So that was when that all started in middle school. I have also traveled a lot, and traveling with dietary restrictions is difficult because it's not like I can just go get a sandwich or go get a pastry, whereas most people can just do that. So I end up having to spend either more money on food or being hungrier than other people, which has been challenging, or just sacrificing it and say, you know what, I'm going to eat this even though I know it may upset my stomach. In a situation where I'm gonna do that, I usually eat that item with the intention that I'm feeding myself and I'm going to feel great after eating it, instead of thinking to myself, if I eat this, I'm going to feel miserable. Because if I have the intention and the thought process that the food I'm putting into my body is gonna make me feel good, it usually does. So the current issues that I'm feeling right now, or I have been feeling throughout this past year and a half, have been different than what I had before. Basically what was happening is no matter what I ate, I was feeling extreme indigestion, constipation, acid reflux, extreme bloating to the point where my clothing wasn't fitting anymore and I didn't recognize my body, fatigue, disfocus in my mind. So really it's so evident to me that how I'm feeling in my body is going to also impact how I feel in my head, because if my body doesn't feel good, I can't focus. If I'm having digestive issues, I'm having brain fog. So that also makes it challenging if you're in school or just trying to do a job. So those were some of my symptoms when I knew something was wrong. Those symptoms started developing very noticeably in January of 2018. I actually remember we went out for dinner for a big breakfast with my dad and my family for his birthday. We had bacon and pancakes and waffles and French toast and so many amazing foods that are really fattening, and I left that meal overeaten and I had the most severe heartburn I'd ever had. I thought I was going to die. It was so scary. And so I knew that something was wrong. However, I was also about to go on this huge trip around the world. I was leaving for San Francisco in a couple of days. I knew I couldn't deal with it. So I said to myself, you know what, Hannah, you're gonna have to deal with these problems when you get home. Good luck, because you're about to go abroad. So I went to Uganda, I was fine. India, I was fine. At the end of my stay in India, I got a GI bug and I took care of that with like the normal medicines that you take for that, just to clear that out. I got to Brazil, still felt a bit constipated. I had a couple acupuncture sessions where my acupuncturist was explaining that I was completely cold in my digestive system, and your digestive system needs to be warm because that's the fire, that's the core of your being. And I really felt cold there. It was physically cold to the touch, but I also felt slightly disconnected with myself and like I didn't have my center. So those were pretty big feelings. I came back to the States. Not only was my stomach in pain no matter what I ate, but I also felt quite depressed and quite removed from myself. So that was a lot that I was going through. I got diagnosed with a parasite, so I took some antimicrobials to get rid of the parasite. The parasite, that was gone pretty quickly. The symptoms went away for a little bit and then they came back. So it was about September 2019. I was living in California, going to school there, living by myself, cooking for myself, and I noticed heartburn, indigestion, gassiness, this like such intense gassiness. No matter what I ate, it just wasn't working. So I started working with a doctor out there. In about March of 2020, I got diagnosed with SIBO. So finally I had a diagnosis. And the next question is, what is SIBO? So SIBO stands for small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. I am going to repeat to you what I've learned, but I'm not a doctor, and please do not take anything I say as a way to diagnose yourself or as truth. Please study for yourself. I've read Julia Ender's book called Gut, and that was really helpful, as well as doing a bunch of Google searching and scouring the internet to help me understand what's going on in my body. But basically, SIBO is a form of IBS. And SIBO comes in two forms, a hydrogen-based or a methane-based, where basically the bacterial overgrowth is either producing hydrogen or it is producing hydrogen, and then you also have a methane-based bacteria that's consuming the hydrogen and producing methane, thus the gassiness that I was experiencing. The hydrogen SIBO, you're going to be more diarrhea, and on the methane, you're gonna have more constipation. So that's what I was going through. And it was uncomfortable, but definitely helpful to have a diagnosis. Immediately once I figured out what it was, I went on something called the low FODMAP diet. The low FODMAP diet is a typical diet for someone who is struggling with IBS, because what you do is you cut out the FODMAPs. And FODMAP stands for different types of sugars and the way different types of food break down in your body. And you basically cut them all out, and that really drastically reduces symptoms by cutting those out. So it was very evident that what I had was feeding off of those foods that I were eating. These foods are quite a random selection of foods: legumes, dairy, obviously processed sugar, but also honey, asparagus, broccoli, onions, garlic. I mean, the list is insane. You have to just learn it and study it and then eat that way. It was very helpful in reducing symptoms. However, it does not make the SIBO itself go away. You also have to treat it. So I started a traditional I don't know if they're antibiotics or antimicrobials, but I started the AntiWestern Medicine traditional way of getting rid of that. I took some pretty serious drugs for a bit, and when I took my test again, even though I wasn't having symptoms, I actually had the same levels of SIBO production, methane production in my system. How they test is you get a breath test, you blow into this breath test over the course of 3 hours, and they test the levels of methane being released in your breath. So it's kind of interesting. It doesn't give you a very specific, accurate read of what is in your system, but it does say if there's something not right in your system, what's happening, what's coming out of your system, if that makes sense. So the next question. It is pretty difficult to diagnose. Because my question is, was it difficult to diagnose? Yes, it is difficult to diagnose, but once you figure it out, you can treat it. So the antibiotics didn't work necessarily, but what has been working now is I'm taking these Chinese medicines from my doctor, and they are really helping in just clearing out my gut, helping me balance the system so that all these intolerances that have developed, like intolerance to egg and corn, hopefully are gonna get more neutralized, and then I'll be able to eat things again, which will be so nice. So it is difficult to diagnose. It's also really difficult to treat, and from what I hear, it does come back over and over again. So it is something that you want to get to the root of and really, really heal, and just, we have to be taking care of our bodies. So the first few months, the question is, how did the first few months feel? It's basically felt like a really difficult journey. It's felt like I'm never gonna be normal again. I'm never gonna not have pain again. I remember I didn't have an appetite for most of this year. I mean, I'd still eat, but I didn't have an appetite. And that was really overwhelming for me. And I remember a couple of months ago, over the summer in July, I had an appetite for breakfast. I woke up hungry, and it happened for a week consistently. And I was so excited. I was like crying to my mom. I was like, I'm healing, I'm healing. So the process is long, and if it's something you're going through, it really does it just sucks. It just sucks to feel like you don't know what's going on exactly. You're taking the time to let it heal, and there's nothing really more you can do about it except for eat this very specific way. But I promise you, if you are going through it, like, just stick with it. Don't lose yourself in this process. Stick with it. Your body is healing, and it's going through what it needs to go through, and it's gonna be okay. And that's really what I needed to hear, is like, it's gonna be okay. It's not permanent, even though it feels permanent right now. So where am I now? I am coming to the end of my Chinese medicine treatment. I am feeling so much better. I mean, I have energy, I have confidence, my body has changed. Like, so many things have changed in my system. I'm not feeling pain. I do notice even if I have like garlic infused olive oil, I will have gassiness and bloating. So I know that it's still there a little bit, but I do feel so much better, and that is amazing. I'll be taking a breath test soon to see what my levels are at and if I have neutralized the SIBO. And the last question is, what have I learned? And I'm just reaching the end of my walk, so I think it's a really great time to get to this point. But I've learned a lot. So while I also have been having SIBO, a lot of my girlfriends also were diagnosed with SIBO at the same time. So we were all going through it. Good morning. And we were all going through this experience of just indigestion and pain in our stomachs and in our guts, and it's just so weird. Like, why are all of these women in my life going through this? And I was talking about it with my friend Sarah, shout out to you, Sarah, about it, and she was like, maybe it's because we're just connected to what's going on in the earth, and our earth is hurting, and therefore our bodies are also hurting. And I think that there is probably a level of truth to that. I wonder if anyone is doing research on that, on the body, earth, mind connection. But basically, I don't have an answer as to why this is happening. I just know that it is happening. And what I've learned from it is intuitive eating is so valuable for me. It's a really good way it's a good way for me to eat when I am worried about, okay, I can only eat these things or those things or those things. I have cravings. But when I let my body know, if you have a craving, I will eat that because I trust you. Instead of telling my body, I don't trust you, so if you have a craving, I'm not going to eat it because it's a craving for sugar or it's a craving for something or carbs or something like that. But if I'm like, you know what, body, I trust you, I believe you, you tell me what you need and I will give it to you, then all of a sudden I'm no longer having intense cravings for sugar. I'm actually having cravings for tomatoes or kale or zucchini or fish or whatever it is that actually my body's really needing. So I'm not recommending any diets. All I'm saying is intuitive eating has worked for me, and if it's something that you want to explore, I would encourage you to talk to a parent, a health practitioner, someone about exploring that kind of diet, because it is actually, because our bodies know what we need. And wow, it's so sunny right here. So our bodies know what we need, so try to listen to them. At the same time, sometimes our bodies are in pain and they're asking us to help them. So listening to your body is really helpful. I made it to the end of my street. It's this beautiful bay, and I just love sitting here and looking out at the water. I find it so peaceful, just sitting here like this. So that's all I have for today. That's been my journey. Thank you guys for listening. I'm sure there is more things when I'm editing I'm gonna be thinking, wow, I did not say that and that was really important, but I will try to add some little extra comments if they're necessary, or if not, make a follow-up video. So drop any questions that you have in the comment section and I will answer them. And let me know if this was helpful for you. Let me know if you are also having gut issues, because there's so many people having them and you should not feel alone. It's such a lonely feeling to be in pain and not be able to express that to other people not being able to relate to that, because pain is such a personal feeling. It's so internal. It's so hard to express to others unless your arm is bleeding. But like, if you're in pain in your gut, like, that pain is real. So listen to that. That pain is real and it is valid, and you are allowed to take care of yourself. You're allowed to mourn and cry for the loss of what you're feeling. I've cried so much. I felt like I was mourning for such a long time from this, but being almost on the other side of it, I hope, has really helped me feel a little bit more balanced. Anyway, like this video, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next week. Bye.